Church, we will read the scriptures together. So we're in 3 John. 3 John. And as we normally do, we will take turns reading. I'll read the odd verses. Let's begin. The elder to the beloved Gaius, whom I love in truth. For I rejoiced greatly when the brothers came and testified to your truth, as indeed you are walking in the truth. Beloved, it is a faithful thing you do in all your efforts for these brothers, strangers as they are. For they have gone out for the sake of the name, accepting nothing from the Gentiles. I have written something to the church, but Diotrephes, who likes to put himself first, does not acknowledge our authority. Beloved, do not imitate evil, but imitate good. Whoever does good is from God. Whoever does evil has not seen God. I had much to write to you, but I would rather not write with pen and ink. Together. Peace be to you. The friends greet you. Greet the friends, each by name. I can't tell from here because the lights are hot. Are we cold down there? I heard a very strong agreement. Should I turn off the AC? Sort of less. Brian, should I turn off the AC? Too much pressure. Can I have my phone? So normally all of these things are happening behind the scenes, guys, but there's a lot of people on mission, so I'm going to have to do this remotely, so bear with me. All right, it'll turn off in 5, 4, 3, 2. No. I was hoping for some magic, but it'll turn off. Yes. I have two main points for today's talk. Gospel partnership and gospel hindrance. Gospel partnership and gospel hindrance. There are a lot of parallels between this book, 3 John, and what we read last week, which is 2 John. They're both very short, shortest books in the Bible. Also, it's written by the same author, and it's very pastoral. It drips with a great love for the people of the church. There are some differences, however. Now, one of the differences we notice is this letter is addressing an individual. His name is Gaius. And Gaius seems to be someone who's involved in some way, in some form of leadership to the recipients there. And John is hearing good news about Gaius. He's hearing about how Gaius is walking in the truth. He's following Jesus. But you can see that there's a genuine relationship here. That's why he says, I pray that all may go well with you and that you may be in good health. Maybe there is some kind of health thing that he knows, but he's praying for his physical health, and he wants his physical health to be as well as his spiritual health. And we see something similar in verse 4 when he says, I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth. So for John, he calls himself an elder. There are people in this community that he would literally see as his spiritual children. He may not be their physical father, but he's poured out his heart, his life, and love into them. And to hear them continuing on gives him immense joy. That kind of legacy is a wonderful part of journeying in church together. Now we come to the section of our first subject called Gospel Partnership. And this is what John says. Beloved Gaius, it is a faithful thing you do in all your efforts for these brothers, strangers as they are. Now what he's talking about people that John has sent to serve the church that Gaius is in, to serve the Christians where Gaius gathers with. And Gaius is receiving them. He is showing them hospitality, and he doesn't actually know who they are. It's a different world to today. You can't just Airbnb a place. You don't just call ahead and book a place. If someone goes out to share and teach the word, if no one is there to receive them, that really leaves very little options. Someone has to be able to vouch for them. Someone has to be able to say, I will bring you into the protection of my dwelling. So they are not strangers to John, but they are strangers to Gaius. And Gaius receives strangers because of the relationship that he has with John. You might have heard the saying or said it yourself, any friend of yours is a friend of mine, that kind of thing. Because of John, he receives them. They're strangers to him, but he shows them hospitality. People have a way of connecting to their own. They did some experiments at I think it was Oxford University or one of those universities somewhere where they do experiments, and they dressed people up in different football teams. And they told them to purposely fall down while they were running. And then they took the stats of how people got helped when they were wearing those jerseys and by who, and when they wore plain clothes. Now, surprise, surprise, if you were a Liverpool supporter, there was a higher likelihood that another Liverpool supporter would not just ignore you, but they would stop and help you. It's not that people are not helping, it's just that the percentages changed depending on what kind of clothes they were wearing. Now, they've done this experiment with all sorts of things, attractive women or people dressed in fine clothes or whatever. The point is, whether we like it or not, we all have a way of showing different ways of prejudice. The sad thing is, there's no real way of knowing a stranger as to one of yours or not. And I'm not talking about any other connection but for Christ. What I'm saying is, in my musings and silly thinkings that I do, there's no way you can know and be like, oh, look at all these Christians on the bus. There's one at the back, there's one at the front, even the driver. There's no way of knowing. You go to a football game, oh, there's a lot of Christians in that section of the crowd. They're all Tiger supporters. There's no way of knowing. And because we don't know who the other Christians are, we don't have the opportunity to show and receive strangers in the faith unless someone vouches for them, unless someone is bringing these different groups together. This kind of hospitality is wonderful on mission. Often through mission, you meet new people. We have a team that's gone and they were welcomed because of the connection over the many years. But there are people that have gone this time, and there are people that are over there receiving who are meeting for the first time. And yet because of the established rapport, they're strangers, but they can receive them and they can show them hospitality. John continues to tell Gaius, you will do well to send them on their journey in a manner worthy of God. Just as you received them, Gaius, when you see them off as the ambassadors of God, is what he's saying. Treat them with as much respect, dignity, honor as you can. And here's the crux of the reason. For they have gone out for the sake of the name. They're not visiting for a holiday. They're not there to see the sights. They are there for a purpose, for the sake of the name. The name is Jesus. Accepting nothing from the Gentiles. It was common practice to receive some kind of fee. If you were gifted with rhetoric, if you were gifted with the art of speaking, if you were able to bring news from far and wide, if you were able to show them what the recent philosophies are, you would receive something. Maybe some food, maybe some accommodation. But they don't want anything to undermine their gospel effort. They don't want any of the Gentiles to think they're just saying this for a feed. They're just saying this so they can find a bed for tonight. And so, these early Christian missionaries and gospel teachers did not want to allow for any of that thinking to come upon the mind of the Gentile world, of the non-Jewish world. So they need support elsewhere. That's why he says, we see this conclusion in verse 8, therefore we ought to support people like these, that we may be fellow workers for the truth. So the people who support these people, John calls them fellow workers. The person who goes and the person who supports are partners, fellow workers. The work is different. Some are working out in the field. Others are working to support that work. Sort of sounds like a missions march kind of sermon a little bit. But anyway, that's where we are. This gospel partnership is a beautiful image of the whole body of Christ being involved with the mission of God. And so, yes, we do say so-and-so is a missionary and so-and-so is a missionary, but every Christian is a gospel partner, or at least ought to be. You are a partner in the business of the Father in heaven. You are a partner in the harvest to see people won for Christ. And so, never, ever, ever allow yourself some wrong thinking that the enemy may seed into you. What are you doing? Why aren't you going? We need to understand that if everyone goes out, like these brothers that are mentioned here, there would be no one to support them. We are all partners in the gospel. So it's important that we recognize this. It's important that we keep our minds on this being a core feature, a core agenda of our church. And just like how this is our priority, it is the priority that loses so quickly when things fracture, when sin and egos come into the fray. And this becomes the next part of our journey through this short letter, gospel hindrance. And so from verse 9, he addresses another thing. I have written something to the church, but Diotrephes, who likes to put himself first, does not acknowledge our authority. So this letter that John has written, it may contain some kind of instruction about how to receive missionaries. It may contain some instruction about the importance of something regarding the teaching of Christ. But there is someone there who is undermining John's apostolic authority. So John here talks in the plural. He's talking about our. It could be his apostolic authority. It could be he and the others who are the ones who were the really set up the Christian community here. Diotrephes, who again seems to be one of the perhaps leaders or a second generation leader, we don't know. But the key point is this: he likes to put himself first. He loves himself first, is probably an even more accurate transliteration. He's a lover of himself. And before we judge him, I have to tell you, I have to remind myself, Diotrephes is in all of us. It's the part of us that wants the recognition. It's the part of us that competes and compares in a sinful way. It's the part of us that demands justice upon others and mercy upon ourselves. We all can so easily put ourselves first. And when we do, we fail to acknowledge both the authority of the Word and sometimes the authority of those within us. We don't need to look around. Is it you? Is it you? It's me. It's me. I need to put to death the Diotrephes in me. He comes and he rises all the time. And this is what John says. So if I come, I will bring up what he is doing, talking wicked nonsense against us. And not content with that, he refuses to welcome the brothers and also stops those who wants to and puts them out of the church. You notice he's doing three things. He's first speaking untruths. He doesn't welcome those who have come to help the church grow. And he interferes with others who try to do so. And again, it is an opportunity to examine our own lives. Have we ever allowed gossip and slander to spread? Have we allowed half-truths or even non-truths to come out of our mouth? Have we intentionally turned our back or given the cold shoulder to someone? And have we also tried to coerce others to do the same? It is all too familiar and sadly all too common in the Lord's church. And when John says, I will bring up what he is doing, do not build in your mind this thunderous John for he now is an elder. And yes, he was regarded as one of the sons of thunder for his temper. But what he's saying here is he's not going to avoid the matter. As loving and as gentle and as pastoral he is, these things must be dealt with, must be contested. He needs to talk to Trophimus. He needs to say, brother, why are you doing this? This is not good. Nowhere is he suggesting, I'm going to bring the pain. I'm going to bring some justice. He is simply saying, I will address it. We know this because verse 11 says this, Beloved, do not imitate evil, but imitate good. It is so tempting for us to dish out what is dished upon us. You're going to bring your words, I bring my words. You're going to bring your family, I'll bring my family. You're going to do this, I'll do the same. To imitate the evil with more evil. But when evil is around us, or when evil is done to us, we ought to do good. That's not easy. That's not easy. But look what it says. Whoever does good is from God. Whoever does evil has not seen God. Now, we don't do good all the time, and we don't do evil all the time, and John knows this. He is simply speaking in extended language to make the point. Whoever does evil has not seen God, doesn't fear God, doesn't know God, has no sense of a moral compass. That's why they do it. Whoever does good, whoever wants to do good, whoever is driven to do good, understands that good and evil is not something that humans just simply decide, but there is a God of the universe who created all things, and He Himself has said this is good and this is evil. We don't know what is motivating this brother called Diotrephes. We don't know if he's trying to gain something or if there's a doctrinal issue, but this is the main point here. There's an issue of pride. There's an issue of selfishness. There's an issue where he's jostling for prominence and position. It is a warning for all of us, especially me, who hold positions of leadership in church. The third character we meet, so the first character we met is Gaius. Wonderful guy, walking in the truth, faithful to people, receiving missionaries. We met Diotrephes, and we talked about how there's a Diotrephes, a bit of him in all of us. And now we meet Demetrius. He is probably the one who is carrying the letter. He's probably the one who's carrying the letter, and he has received a good testimony from everyone and from the truth itself. We also add our testimony, and you know that our testimony is true. The person taking this letter on John's behalf is to be received. He's to be trusted. And the final closing, these last 3 verses, are they ever so true then, even more now? I had much to write to you, but I would rather not write with pen and ink. I hope to see you soon, and we will talk face to face. The wonders of modern technology allow us, through these things, to see our loved ones, to connect with them, our husbands, our wives, our girlfriends, our boyfriends, our nephews, our nieces, our children. Hi! We can be kilometers away, and yet we can see them, and yet for all of us, we know that is not the same as a face-to-face. Or the literal here, it's a bit, literally he's saying mouth-to-mouth. It's a bit gross. But that's just their way of saying face-to-face. Okay? It's not about kissing. It's just their way of saying it. He wants to be that close. I want to be in the same room, be in the same place. I want to share everything going on. We will talk face to face. Peace be to you. The friends greet you. Greet the friends, each by name. There are friends where John is who are saying hello. There are friends over there that are to hear from Gaius. John says hello, each by name. Church, to summarize this afternoon, we are all partners in the gospel. Don't forget that. Don't forget that. You don't have to be doing something or to be seen doing something. We are all partners in the gospel. It is important that you work out your faithfulness in that partnership, that you work out your activeness in that partnership. And whenever any of us puts our own agenda first, our own pride first, whenever we allow division to continue because of pride, because of putting my love for me ahead, that is how the gospel becomes hindered. And it's so common that whenever things start to go poorly within God's church, the things that get forgotten are the most important things. The things that are supposed to be focused on are left behind, such as the proclamation of the gospel, such as the building up of the saints, such as loving one another and practicing that love throughout all difficult circumstances. All those things get left behind, and instead, personal egos and agendas become everything. And suddenly people have to take sides, and people have to figure out which camp they're on. Technology changes so much, but people haven't changed that much in the last 2,000 years. And what we see here is a warning for us. Kill the Diotrephes that is inside you. Put him to death. Do not allow him to take root and grow. And I hope that as much as we can do online stuff, I hope that each and every one of us can cherish the joy that we have, that we can do church face to face. What an immense privilege it is. And I hope that we realize this because of the past pandemic. And we use our technology because it is there, but we don't replace how we ought to meet with technology. Let's give thanks to God for His word. Let's think about what we've read. Perhaps you want to open your Bible and look at these 15 verses again to see what stands out for you. Let's respond and come in a time of prayer to God.